Ink up. Slow down. Write your rhythm with Script and Scribe.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Script and Scribe. I'm Kat and today I'm sharing the new planners I'll be using in 2026. Now you can see a Hobonichi Techo Cousin here. Well, back in 2022, I thought I'd found my forever journal in the form of this Hobonichi Cousin, and I stayed completely loyal to it in 22, 23, 24, and 25. So 4 years, and I was getting ready to commit for year number 5 with that huge Hobonichi launch in September, when I found myself stepping back and thinking about it and going, you know what, is it really working if I have got so many pages that are blank? And that really made me think about the way that I journal and what holds me back sometimes with journaling in my cousin. And yes, I know I could easily fill these pages with ink swatches and doodles so that the pages don't go to waste. But the point is that I do want a journaling system that works as intended, one that helps me process, plan, and feel lighter, one that really calls to me using the journals in the way that they're intended. And I realized that just liking the cousin and liking the brand of Hobonichi didn't justify me spending £59 when, for the last 4 years, I had many blank pages in between, because that's an indicator that it is not entirely working the way I wanted it to. Certainly not as my grand idea back in 2022 that I could have just one journal for everything. So the first reason that I was sort of like stepping back is the realization that I needed more than one journal. The one journal system does not work for me, though I love watching creators who make it look effortless. Those tidy daily pages where every task, doodle, and meal log has its perfect place. Absolutely gorgeous. And every time I tell myself, this year I'll be that person, I will fill it out in the best way. But the simplicity of a single system is deceptive. It's great if your thoughts come out neatly structured. Less so if, like me, your brain needs a dumping ground first, and I daren't dump all my thoughts onto a daily page and then leave myself no room for actually inputting the more structured thinking afterwards. So immediately I needed a sort of like second brain dump journal, which I have been using it with this Leuchtturm, and that has really helped in the last year, getting me to actually structure things before I find myself, refining it and being able to put it into the cousin. But it doesn't stop there. I don't just need somewhere to sprawl before I streamline. I have a reading journal, for example, so that again sits outside of this because the blank pages at the back of the cousin were not enough space for me to be logging the reading that I do. And I had thought, I'm investing in my cousin. I'm spending over £50 because it will do everything. And that's not been the case. I need a brain dump journal. I need a reading journal. I need other journals. And so this here has stopped feeling like the be all and end all, and it is just one part, one cog in a wider system. Now, I know better. One book for me is too restrictive. It works for others. I need what everyone in the community is currently calling a journal ecosystem, each with their own clear purpose. So with that in mind, I had already been thinking about all of this when Hobonichi launch season hit, and I was like feeling swept up in this, excitement that we get about the launch. And I thought, okay, so what I'll do is I will go all Hobonichi out. I will have the cousin that I already have, then I will line up the weeks. I'll get an A6 original Techo, and I will add for good measure an A5 grid notebook. And then I did the math. We've got 59 plus 38 plus 38 plus 24, giving us £159 before covers. So that was the moment it clicked for me. The journals I need don't all have to come from the same brand. I just need high quality, fountain pen friendly paper. And I asked myself, what could the £59 that I was going to, use as my usual auto buy, what could that £59 get me in terms of 3 journals that I need, with one being a hub that has a similar layout to the Cousin? And enter journal number 1. For £59, this was my task. Let's see if I managed to do it. First up, I spent £22.80 on the journal that has been called a dupe of this Hobonichi Techo Cousin. It is the Kinbor, which is a Chinese-made journal. And I found out about this after watching Rachel in Theory's Hobonichi Enthusiast Tries Kinbor Planners. That video hit every note, including the part about brand loyalty that I was feeling. Anyway, I ordered this journal that very night, and 11 days later it arrived through the letterbox and was, of course, promptly attacked. I don't know if you can see this, by my dog, and I've got a customization from him in terms of these 2 little teeth in there. He's not very big, but he is ferocious with the post. So neat tooth mark customization. You're not going to find anything else like that out there. So perfectly on brand for this house. Now, every reviewer who tried this Techo from Kinbor said the same thing, that they felt it was more inspired by the Cousin rather than being an outright copycat version. So let's have a look at what sold me on this when I was watching that video about it. Firstly, no pointless pages and no quotes. So what do I mean by pointless pages? Let's find this. This is in... yeah, there we go. So what I mean by that is this graph paper, for example, that feels like wasted space to me, because although it's telling me that this is convenient for recording your daily weight or other ongoing changes when you have a certain target in mind, I would need more than half a page to actually write my thoughts about it. Like I told you, I have got a lot of thoughts, and even if I do the brain dump in another journal and then, do the refined version here, I don't see this being enough space. And so this graph paper not only feels like a wasted space, but it's almost like in the back of my mind, I've kept thinking, what can I do with it? What can I do with it? And I don't need that sort of like distraction. Why should I be trying to find a purpose for a tool rather than a tool serving me in the way that it's meant to be? So I'm not into that, and I'm also not into the quotes. So here we've got a quote from a copywriter. It occurred to me that I would like to be a gorilla. Not a gorilla in a zoo, but a wild gorilla. I would like to be a gorilla and play with other gorillas. Sleep as a gorilla, dream gorilla dreams. I would like to do some thinking in a gorilla way too. I mean, it's okay, but it's not really inspiring me, and I find a lot of these really, really random, and I would rather that the grid go all the way down. So we look at this alternative here, and we look at the dailies, and the grid goes all the way down. So that for me was instantly... it's tricky to say it's a relief because it sounds exaggerated, but it actually is a relief, because for me this ended up being noise. And I've noticed that some people said they like it, and some people who don't like it, like me, spend time... let's see if I've got any washi tape. Yeah. So they spend time actually, I'm not really a washi tape person, but I had these spare. They spend time, like sticking washi tape over the bits that they don't like. And for me, this is like, why are we doing this? Why are we customizing an expensive journal to make it more fit for purpose? Shouldn't it already be fit for purpose? I mean, that took me seconds, but, every single day, taping that over, taping this over, I don't know. So I was getting a little bit frustrated the more I thought about it. And yet I hadn't identified that as being so distracting and so annoying until I really started considering things. And when I saw this, I was like, I really like the simplicity of this. The other thing that I'm not so into with the cousin that I actually thought that I loved or would love is the changing of the colors every month. Obviously not that, that's an ink splash. But for example, October has got a purple theme, so you've got the purple grid and the purple index, and then you've got a lovely sort of like teal, greeny blue for November. And I was color matching fountain pen inks to the different months. But then if I forgot to switch from my purple in October, let's say Jane Eyre ink, to Resurrection ink, both from Wiringil, if I ended up writing in purple in November, I got really annoyed with myself. So it was like feeding my perfectionism and my irritation and irritation at myself. And why is it making me irritated at myself? I was inspired to use the different colors, yes, but because I couldn't do it in the way that I wanted, it was just, again, some sort of clutter and noise. And I looked at this and I was like, this is what I need, because yes, it doesn't inspire me to use 101 different ink colors. But if I, were to be inspired and I switched colors, I wouldn't feel that I was, failing to match anything, because this is just a really laid back, neutral gray, and in between you've got the splashes of red for the weekends and the public holidays and stuff like that. And I think you can tell that I'm actually stressing myself out talking about the colors, because another thing that really bugged me is I had this urge to buy the cousin anyway before I decided to set myself the £59 budget. I was like, I'll get the cousin and then I'll get, all of these other journals from other brands to sit alongside it. And then I was like, no, £59 was always okay when you thought this journal did everything. So you have to stick within the £59 and find yourself something broader that works. So the reason that I was getting really frustrated with myself is that I was tempted to get it because I saw that Hobonichi had this launch and they had a collaboration with Uniball. So what has dropped is 12 monthly colors in terms of their pens that you can get to match the months. And I was like, surely with this curated, pack, or these 2 packs, there's a 6 and a 6, each of them 40 quid, which total £80 for these 12 pens, I can, definitely be in a better position to match the colors correctly. I can finally do that task. Well, what does that task even mean? Is it that task doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's just aesthetic, and I can save myself £80 by not, buying into it. So this is the imaginary stack that we had. That was £159. And then we add the £80 to that, 239, which we can just roughly say is £240, or $323. So yeah, I would rather stick to a £59 budget, which, is already really generous. So before I keep triggering myself about little irritations when I've already said that actually, the cousin as the core design I like, this year sort of like took out the things that I didn't like about the cousin. So I'll lean into the Kinbor's sort of neutral grays, soft red accents, no quotes, no color coding, distractions. The product description says the Kinbor uses 52 GSM batch run paper, which apparently is very similar to the Hobonichi Tomoe River paper, and it certainly feels that way. And I found that there is minimal ghosting, so I will show you. I started filling in the favorites with my pens, my fountain pens, and I made sure to use this yellow gold ink that is notorious for bleeding through paper if you use a lot of it. And I used it in a stub to see if it would go through the page. And look at that. It's just amazing. The black ink, which I've used here, is Waterman in this Kakuno, and there's barely any ghosting. You can see it very slightly. You can see it when I've done these stars along here when I pressed a little bit harder on the edge. But on the whole, this is amazing performance. To be more fair to the Hobonichi, I will say that in the Kinbor, there are some pages that for me are not going to be useful. And it's not just because they're in Chinese. I mean, I expected that because it is a Chinese planner, but I wouldn't really be into using recipes. I don't need to know much about any of these topics here. So yeah, there are some pages that are sort of like wasted space for me. It's not that bad because it's not asking me to do something. I think that is my gripe, is when there is additional pages that purport or they suggest that they are a tool, and then I feel like I should be using them, but haven't got a purpose for them. That's when I start getting annoyed, which is like with the graph paper. But anyway, we've already talked about that, and I said I wasn't going to be doing anything ranty because it was my own fault for not realizing, like my preferences for such a long time. And I mean, I've been journaling for more than 4 years. Oh, actually, I can show you my first ever journal from when I was 6. Not that I actually journaled in it myself, because other people journaled in it for me. It's actually from when I was 4, I think. But anyway, yeah, so I have got loads of entries in there from other people to me, and it's a lovely memory, lovely keepsake. But anyway, let me not digress, and let us try this Wiringule A-Star Splattered Hill to see just how much this ink will go through the different pages. You saw the performance as it wrote in the stub, and it looked really good on the other side, but I want to, go a little further, and we're going to do an ink swatch off it where I won't mind it going through the page. So we'll do that over here. And do the same thing. I might have put more on the Hobonichi, so let's be fair and put some more on here. Really load that page up. And this is an ink that I know can, happily bleed through paper because it's wet. It's gorgeous though. I mean, like when it works, it really works well, as you can see in that writing. We'll wait for that to dry. So I'm not certain if it's because I loaded the Kinbor with more ink than the Hobonichi, but the Hobonichi definitely dried quicker. So let's have a look at the performance of this shimmer ink on here. You got nice shimmer. You do have feathering along here where it had pulled a little bit. And you have some feathering there, which I don't think it had pulled quite as much, but it's feathering nonetheless. And then if we turn the page over, yeah, we got bleed through to the next page. In fact, I think that's still wet. Okay, maybe that's why it was looking like it had dried so quick. It went through the page. There we go. And it's possibly starting to go through there as well. But yeah, it looked like it was drying quicker, but I have a feeling that's because it was absorbing into the paper more. And this is the 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. And then I loaded more onto here because I didn't want to be unfair to the Hobonichi, and you can see that it hasn't dried yet. There's definitely wet sections there. This bit has dried. What I did first and then what I added on is still drying. I can't see any feathering. I can see shading, I can see shimmer. I can't see any feathering, and there's no bleed through. You can see the paper sort of buckling where I really saturated it but it's not gone through. I can definitely feel the wet ink, but it's holding. So we'll leave that for a bit longer, come back to it. I think what's clear for me is that very much like the reviews that I was seeing for this Kinbor, is that I feel that it keeps things really simple in terms of the layout. It just looks a lot cleaner, a lot more spacious. And the added bonus is this performance. I don't know what the 2026 batch of the Hobonichi 52 GSM Tomo River paper is like. I would, love to do an ink sample with this ink on it to see if the comparison is as clear as this in terms of the performance. This performance is definitely outshining. So the batch one on the Kinbor, yeah, I prefer having less ghosting. So, and definitely if I had wanted to do ink swatching, which I'm not going to be doing, but if I had wanted to be doing ink swatching, then I would be really happy with the performance of the paper. And that leads us on to what these actually come with, these journals, because otherwise I'll be forever talking just about the Kinbor, and we've got 2 more journals to look at because, like I said, for £59, I managed to get the Kinbor for £22.80, and then we'll go on to that one next. But what I had with the 2025 Cousin is this insert, and it was meant to be an interactive way of learning to use your Cousin, and I just found it a little bit surreal. So it looks like a bit of a movie poster, which in a way is sort of like cool. And it was all about, reaching your potential, I think. So you're supposed to scan the QR code at each stage for it to be that interactive, useful guide in terms of getting the most out of your Hobonichi Cousin. But I really just didn't see much of a point in it. I didn't find it very interactive. It was called The Mystery of Techo Mask. I mean, if you love this, let me know in the comments. It sort of went over my head. And then we've got this 2026 Kinbor Techo insert. And I like the multi-functionality of it. It's really cute. I mean, it's not necessarily my style. Next year is going to be the year of the horse. So you've got a lovely horse wall poster. But on the other side, you've got a really in-depth layout of how to use the different sections of your journal, the Kinbor Techo. It also tells you about the different front designs that they've got, the different types of the Techo. So in fact, I saw some people said, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that in 2026 Kinbor has divided their journal into 2 sections, but actually it's just very much like Hobonichi does, where you can have 2, like 6 month and 6 month. So don't accidentally buy that. I mean, that's this version here. It comes in 1 pack, but they give you the 2. If you prefer the single one, remember to go for that one. And then I went for plain black, but you could get the red one that had the little horse on it, which looks really sweet and everything, but again, it's not my style. And then there was a floral one, a floral cover. But looking at the guide, you'll notice that only the headings are in English, and then the rest is in Chinese, which, fair enough, it is a Chinese planner. But all I had to do was use my camera and then use Google Translate on it. I guess there's other apps that you can do this with, and it tells you specifically what the instructions are on here, which I thought was really handy. Now, one of the sections that I really liked for the planner is this. So they call that daily attendance, and then you can do your habit tracking along there, which they've explained over here. And you've got your monthlies, which is very, very similar to the Cousin. And then there's a yearly spread, which I find really useful. So I've already filled it in. Okay, so I have gone on about the Kinbor as a sort of like similar structure to the Cousin long enough. And with £59 to play with, This cost £22. I kept saying £22.80, but it's really £22.28, including the postage. So that left me with £36.72 to play with. And that takes me on to my next journal, you'll be happy to hear. And it is one that other people are really familiar with, but I was not. It is the Midori MD, and it is the Codex. So it's got this lovely exposed sort of like thread bound finish there. And I've got the clear cover that goes with, well, it doesn't come with it, you have to buy it separately, very much like Hobonichi, but I thought it was worth it because it is like the Hobonichi and like the Kinbor. It's a fairly soft cover. And before, so I'm going to go back to the Kinbor. You guys are going to be like, wow, she's so biased. But if I go back to the Kinbor, I just wanted to show you that the Hobonichi cover that I use for 2025 fits really well. And if you're wondering, you know, I'm not hugely a stickers person, but I do like my anime. So when I got the Spy X Family cover, I thought it would be fun to have a set of stickers, and then I've not really been using them. So when I realized that I was going to use the Kinbor, I finally had a place to stick all these stickers because the black of the Hobonichi cover actually suits the Kinbor, Kinbor 2026 better than this one did. So if you see here the color match, I think that's looking sleek, and it fits perfectly because the size and the width of it, like it is A5, but I mean the width is really good. So anyway, I'll put that to the side. And we go back to this. This here, I got the clear cover from Midori, and this is a Midori MD paper codex. So it's got a day a page. It's actually got a few additional pages to that. And it has these cool perforations. I don't know if I will use them, but I mean, I've got the option. And aside from the cool perforations and the two sort of dashes there to do like page numbers, you'll notice nothing else. And the reason being that this is going to be that sprawl that I talked about, the place for me to jot down my unfiltered ideas, my brain dumps, my tangents. There'll be mind maps, really poorly performed doodles because my art is ridiculously bad, random swatches and half-formed ideas. This is where they'll go. I love this blank slate, no distraction, just me having to pick up the pen and writing. Now they have got other options for the codex if you don't like a blank paper. I know that in my family, I'm one of the few people in my family that can write straight line on blank paper. Everyone else needs ruled, or a handful of my family are okay with dotted. A lot aren't even with dotted. They just 100% like ruled paper. And that's one of the things, you know, like you've already heard that I'm a picky person. I'm like, everything bugs me. This isn't aligning. And yet when it comes to dot, line, or plain, I'm flexible. I really do not mind. So this time though, I chose blank because I thought minimal distraction. Not that lines or dots are going to be a distraction to me, but this just felt like the perfect place to be, that, you know, area for putting everything into, where I can process as a second brain, then refine before migrating it into the Kinbor. This is classic Midori MD paper, so it's buttery smooth, it's fountain pen friendly, and it's consistent. I think it's around 80 GSM, so it's thicker than both the Kinbor and the Hobonichi, and it's still really light. So, you know, a lot of people prefer smaller journals than I do. I'm an A5 person through and through, as you can tell. I have tried to use A6, I've tried to use Pocket, and I just don't get along with them. So one thing that all of the journals that I've picked have in common is that they have that binding that allows you to have the journal lay totally flat. And that's another thing that I love, you know, not being faced with that sort of like curve. So we're really lucky in the journal community to have so many options that think about little things like this that just make a writing experience that much more, you know, pleasant. No wrestling with the spine. Not that there was like huge wrestling back in the day, like in the 90s, you know, but I don't want to go back there where we didn't have access to all of these lovely journals. Anyway, the perforated corners are just so that you can mark your place. So let's say, you know, in half a year I'm somewhere there, all of these edges will be gone and I can just immediately find my place, which, you know, is handy. And I like the cream color as well. It's really soft on the eye. It's, yeah, just a really pleasant one. And this is just an optional extra, so I haven't counted it. I have not counted this in my budget because we're only talking about £59 for journals, but I picked up secondhand the MD fountain pen. And it was really interesting to me that this fountain pen from a Japanese brand is actually made in Europe. So I will put down which country it is, but yeah, it's not made in Japan. In fact, I found a lot of different pens that we think are sort of like Japanese manufactured, that are sort of like more affordable, are not Japanese manufactured. So for example, Muji. When I looked at people's recommendations for me to pick up a Muji fountain pen, it fascinated me that both the polycarbonate and the aluminium one are made in China. So yeah, you know, just little things like that interest me. But anyway, this here, I've just done a really quick talk through because there's very little to say about it. I'm not going to index it. I'll let it flow naturally. You can index it, of course. And there's these very minimal stickers that come with it. So you can pop that on the front to say whether you're, you know, going with it as a diary format or it's an idea one. I'm going to use the idea label on the front of here at some point because I want to think about how I'm placing it. And then you've got, you know, 1 to 12 like monthly markers there. So yeah. And then I suppose when I'm finished, I could always, you know, pop these on the spine maybe? I don't know. I'll have a think. But anyway, so that exists and it's all really nice and minimal and sleek. So that is number 2. And when we do the math, God, I keep forgetting to do the math. So we said £59 and then we took off 22.28 and that left us with 36.72, and then I got this from Amazon for £17.99. That leaves us with £18.73 for the next and final journal that I went with for 2026. And I got a Stalogy A5. Again, Japanese and lace flat and all of that. But I'm showing you this because this is the one that I bought. But then I realized that I had a Stalogy that I had really enjoyed and was using before I got into Hobonichi. And I sort of like went into my old journals and I retrieved the one that had started. And so I'll keep this one that has been newly bought for another time. And we will instead, or I will, be using this old one where I had only used this number of pages. But anyway, this is still the same. I think it's a yellow cover though, and I have put it in a Hobonichi cover dupe from the Non. I don't know if that's from, I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway, it's from Temu and it was £4.99. I think I will put a Hobonichi cover on cover here to protect the front because it's got the suede texture and inside PU leather. But anyway, it is a perfect fit for the Stalogy and really handy. And you got the little index. I do think that they got the index slightly too far to the side over there, but I mean, this is a £4 or £5 cover. I'm not going to be overly picky. It does slightly bug me because, yeah, it just does. But yeah, if it had been over there, it would have been perfection. still worth it. Still worth it. I can live with it. Anyway, this is, like I say, an old Stalogy, so I've got some marks on it, but as you can see, unused. And I will also be using different journals aside from the 3 that I'm showing you in 2026, and I'll be sort of like shopping my own stash. But let's talk about the Stalogy. It is a 365, so again you've got like a day a page, and then you've got a couple of additional pages, very much like the Midori, but you can see the paper quality is very different. It's much thinner than the Midori. It is more in line with the Hobonichi thickness of paper. In fact, I think it is 52 GSM, so it's thin like Tomoe River paper, but I don't think it is Tomoe River paper because it does not have the feel of that coating that comes with the Hobonichis. And yet it is surprisingly tough and fountain pen friendly. So I didn't want to write in my Midori, so you'll just have to take my word for it that it is a fountain pen friendly paper, because I've seen everyone raving about Midori MD. But I will do a quick test here. So let's do a test page to see how this 52 GSM holds up in terms of ghosting and fountain pen friendliness. There we go. It does look very, very similar to the Hobonichi Performance in terms of ghosting. So it ghosts a bit more than the Kinbor, but it's, you know, perfectly fine, especially when you're considering how thin it is for all the pages that you get. So it makes it really nice and portable for an A5 and light, and it is, again, distraction free because everything recedes into the background. I think for some people the grid might be too faint. It's not for me. I like the faintness of it. What I struggle to see is the numbers along here, but it goes from 0 to 24. So you got your timeline along there, and you have, it's undated, but it is sort of dated in terms of you can circle your month. So for example, I could circle that to say January, but I can't actually read that because it's teeny tiny. So I just have to know from the placement of it, you know, like I can take a guess that that's the 4th in line. So that's going to be April, and obviously that's going to be December. I cannot see that. I mean, even with my glasses on, which I should be wearing, I don't know where I've put them, but anyway, even with my glasses on, I can't really see that. And again, with the numbers, that's the 1st, and that's the 31st, and this is a Sunday, and you got the Monday there. So I don't find that particularly useful, but it's also not distracting because it totally recedes if I want it to recede. And the ones that I don't want to recede, like the grid, are providing me with an outline. And the numbers there, I can guess because that's a 0, that's 24. I know the halfway mark's going to be the 12 along there, that sort of thing. So, and I'm not using it in the way that I'm going to be using the Kinbor, or I have been using the Hobonichi. So for me, this is ideal. Yes, the headers are tiny and tricky, but I wanted no extras. This has no pockets, so it also has no ribbons. It's got no index page. It's got simplicity, which some people can find a little bit too simple. But this is going to be my financial accountability partner. I just wanted it to provide me with a bit of a grid line where I can, you know, create my tables and then do my logging in here. So for me, this is ideal for what I need. And price-wise, did we come in at £18.73, which is what was left? Well, I can tell you, yes, we did, because the red one that I bought was £18.50. A saving of 23p and a whole lot of space for my sprawling mind to expand into. So I built a 3-journal setup that works better for me: Kinbor for structure and deadlines, Midori for ideas and drafts, and Stalogy for finances. And I'm happy with this new setup. It means I'm no longer pretending that one immaculate color coordinated book can hold everything for me. It also doesn't force me to adapt to layouts that don't serve me. It doesn't tempt me into doing the color coordinated thing, which, you know, it's easy to tempt me there because I do like my colors and matching. Together, these books provide the simplicity that I need in a system that will support me to work in the way that I want to work. You know, removing distractions, simplifying. I do have a couple more journals in my wider ecosystem, which, you know, like I said, I've got a reading journal, but I'll save the full tour for another video because I talked a whole lot longer than I thought I was going to. This isn't a takedown of the Cousin. I am so grateful for my time with the Cousin. In fact, where did I put it? I want to put it back into the Hobonichi cover because, I mean, the year 2025 is not done yet. Guys, I do not know where there we go. So I am still very, very happy with this Hobonichi, which has been through the wars, which is why I got a cover. But anyway, the Hobonichi, I, you know, appreciate my time with it. It has been so useful because it got me to try things and it got me to experiment and it got me to realize that unlike a lot of other people who have very structured thoughts and can come to a daily page, be that in a Kinbor or in a Hobonichi Cousin or in any other daily planner, they can come to the page with their fully formed ideas and just set it all down nice and structured. This layout helped me realize in trying to do the one journal thing that I cannot think in that way. I cannot go from thought to that tidy entry without having a place for me to just sort of brain dump first. So hats off to anyone who keeps that sleek coordinated style all year and manages to do it in a not time consuming way. And also, if you manage to switch inks perfectly month to month in the Cousin, let me know, because if you managed all 12 colors without a single overlap, please know that I am genuinely in awe. It probably looks fabulous. And to everyone who sticks with one perfectly neat journal, again, I salute you. My 4 years using a Cousin have taught me what I value and what demotivates me in a planner. If your brain, like mine, leans towards curiosity and exploration, #chaos, before it manages to settle into structure, this discussion might resonate. Having multiple journals across different brands for 2026 is really going to help me with Kinbor as my structured core that all the other journals feed into. So I'll do my, you know, different themes in the other books and in my brain dump, and then refine that and be able to enter into my Kinbor the final stuff, the place that, you know, has been already experimented, reflected on, and adapted. And then I have my to-do in the Kinbor, the ready to go for action space in the Kinbor. If your Cousin has lots of gaps, you've struggled keeping up with a monthly color code, or you find the quotes more distracting than inspiring, maybe you're not failing at journaling, maybe you're just discovering what kind of journaler you actually are. You don't have to fit your life into one perfect planner, whatever the brand. Sometimes the perfect setup is simply the one that finally fits you. And that is my planner pivot for 2026. And if you've recently expanded or downsized your ecosystem, I'd love to hear what's working for you or what you hope to try next year. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this reflection on planners, paper, and perfectionism. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps. And tell me in the comments what your 2026 setup looks like. I'll go write something, messy or neat, it all counts.